I didn't say a word as they slid the eviction notice across the table. Instead, I handed over the 1923 water rights deed. 35 McMansions were about to become lakefront property. I'm Jake Morrison, 34, Army Corps of Engineers, and third-generation owner of 47 acres just outside Austin, Texas. While I was deployed in Afghanistan, the Willowbrook Estates, HOA, tried to steal my grandfather's farm. They built a luxury subdivision downstream of an old earth dam. Pops and the Army Corps had constructed back in 1978, perfectly legal, federally documented, and holding back decades of water. They thought I wouldn't notice. My sister, who managed the land while I was overseas, missed a property tax reassessment. That opened the door for Margaret Maggie Thornwellich, OA president, wife of a shady city councilman and suburban dictator, to file an adverse possession claim. With some underhanded zoning changes, they started building on land they didn't own. Worse, they diverted the creek feeding our dam, nearly drying it up. When I came home, I found construction crews swarming my land. Stayed overseas. That's when I got to work. I dug through county records like I was back clearing IEDs. I found Pops's Army Corps, dam permits, and, even better, a 1923 deed giving my family senior water rights to the entire watershed, including every single home in Willowbrook Estates. Suddenly, it wasn't a property dispute, it was federal. Maggie tried spinning the media, calling my dam unsafe, painting me as a threat. But her panic grew as I filed a cease and desist backed by water law, Corps' engineering authority, and a quiet call to a federal contact. GATESHOA, arrogance met gravity. The lake filled, the development flooded legally, naturally, and magnificently. So, where are you watching from? Drop a comment. This is how you take down an HOA with federal law, a dam, and a little Texan grit every night. The water in Pop's dam dropped an inch. That's when I called Tony Riggs, my old Army buddy turned EPA enforcer. Jake, he said, if they're diverting a waterway without permits, that's a Clean Water Act violation. I knew then this wasn't just about land. It was federal. I started documenting everything: trail cams, water flow logs, time-stamped photos. My sister urged me to sell and leave, but this wasn't about money. It was about a dam my father built to serve the community, now threatened by McMansions and corruption. In Texas, water rights run deeper than oil, and this fight wouldn't be won in court, it would be won with proof, pressure, and engineering. Maggie escalated fast. Her HOA patrol parked at my gate like it was a checkpoint, filing bogus reports and drowning me in inspections. Even Rick from City Council weaponized a wellness check against me, labeling me a troubled vet. Then came the blitzfire. Marshal, health, animal control, in one day. Citing trivial violations meant to break me, but I fought back. Tony confirmed they'd never filed a wetlands assessment. Federal law requires clearance to redirect natural waterways. Penalties start at $50,000 a day. And then came the bombshell. Their entire development sat on a federally designated 100-year floodplain. They tried to bury me in red tape, but I had something stronger: the truth and the law on my side. Companies initially hesitated to provide coverage until the HOA presented a flood mitigation plan. Their solution? To permanently redirect Willow Creek away from the new homes and flood my property instead. Here's a key insight. Insurance fraud in development projects can lead to criminal penalties, including federal mail fraud. As I dug deeper, I discovered that this wasn't Maggie's first encounter with such tactics. Her previous HOA in Houston had faced a $2.3 million EPA fine for a similar creek diversion scheme before she moved to Austin, seeking new victims. While she spread rumors about my mental health and hired a private investigator to dig into my military background, I was building alliances with other HOA victims. I connected with Mrs. Chen, whose garden had suffered since the creek diversion, and Miguel Santos, whose family farm had been rezoned out of existence. These incidents were part of a systematic land grab that had persisted for years. With heavy machinery serving as a daily reminder of my fight, I installed water flow meters to document the theft of 1,200 gallons of water per day, worth $47,000 annually in agricultural rights. This was not just theft, it was environmental destruction. Then, I received a certified letter, The city planned to seize my property through eminent domain for public safety, with a hearing in 2 weeks. Maggie's quote in the paper made her strategy clear. Sometimes you have to protect the community. From itself, as storm clouds gathered, I recognized an opportunity. Maggie escalated her tactics, and the HOA offered me $180,000 for a property valued at $890,000. The local newspaper ran a hit piece portraying me as a domestic terrorist, while Maggie staged a photo op with concerned mothers near my property, going viral under the hashtag #ProtectOurKids. She was right about one thing. I did bring something back from Wartha: ability to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate you and the skills to fight back. Then, Tony Riggs called with the EPA investigation into Willow Creek diversions was already underway when I discovered Maggie's Pastor Houston HOA had been fined $2.3 million for the same scheme. Federal environmental crimes follow you. Even when you relocate, Maggie's panic rose as I revealed her fraud. Inflated property values tied to construction. Loans required guaranteed water access. Development would collapse. She offered $400,000. Cash-I refused. Meanwhile, I built alliances. Environmental lawyer Amanda Cross and local farmers joined forces. Miguel Santos proved historic water use since 1887. Mrs. Chen shared photos of her grandfather's creek-fed garden. The Audubon Society confirmed protected bird habitats were destroyed. A federal crime. At night, I found Pops Dam's hidden emergency spillway system. Unused since 1982, $2.8 million. Built homes blocking its path. When Maggie installed concrete barriers to permanently divert the creek, she sealed her fate. Heavy September rains gave me cover. As I stood at the spillway controls, Pop's words echoed: "Help neighbors in drought. Time to flood the fraud away." I discovered a misfiled document that changed everything. The original agricultural flood management covenant from P. Dam, it stated, "Dam operators shall maintain natural seasonal flow patterns to preserve downstream agricultural water rights in perpetuity." This was a legal obligation that superseded any HOA agreements or city ordinances. Amanda Cross's investigation revealed even more alarming truths. The HOA's insurance applications contained blatant lies, claiming no seasonal flooding risk and a permanent creek diversion, approved by all agencies to secure $47 million in coverage. Insurance fraud in development projects can lead to criminal penalties, including federal mail fraud with mandatory prison time. As we dug deeper, we uncovered that Rick Thornwell's construction company was not only the contractor, but also the primary investor in the HOA development. Every house built on my stolen land enriched him, and he never recused himself from city council votes benefiting his project. Tony Riggs shared EPA findings that infuriated me. The creek diversion had wiped out the Guadalupe's population, a protected species. Texas Parks and Wildlife had documented the fish kill, but the report mysteriously vanished before triggering federal prosecution. They weren't just stealing land and water, they were destroying an ecosystem. Amanda's banking contacts revealed that construction loans were secured through fraudulent environmental assessments, falsely claiming the creek diversion was temporary. If those water rights reverted to me, the development would violate federal lending regulations, allowing banks to demand immediate repayment of $12 million in loans. In the farmhouse attic, I found Pop's journals. One entry from 1980 read, "Opened spillway today. Helped the Santos farm and 3 others get through dry spell." The dam was about community service, not profit. Maggie had stolen not just land and water, but 45 years of community cooperation. My engineering analysis confirmed that Maggie's creek diversion created an upstream flooding hazard. The original creek bed provided natural flood control, and my spillway system was essential for managing seasonal flooding. With September rains predicted to be the heaviest in 7 years, I realized I had to act quickly. A controlled spillway release could demonstrate natural flood patterns and prove the HOA development violated federal environmental law. Standing at the spillway controls, holding Pop's journal, I understood this was no longer about revenge. It was about restoring the natural order that had sustained our community for generations. Maggie had systematically dismantled the local farming community, forcing families like Miguel Santos and Mrs. Chen to lose their ancestral properties. Schemes. The federal environmental investigators were scheduled to visit next month, and the timing was perfect. If I could showcase the natural flood patterns before their inspection, it would prove that the HOA development violated multiple federal laws. The musty smell of hydraulic fluid and the dam control mechanisms reminded me that Pops had designed this equipment for moments like these, when someone needed to stand up for the creek and the community that depended on it. As storm clouds gathered, I made a pivotal decision. It was time to honor Pop's legacy and open those gates. This wasn't an act of revenge. Support. I assembled my team. Amanda Cross coordinated the legal strategy, filing federal complaints to ensure media attention when the spillway opened. Tony Riggs provided federal cover, guaranteeing that EPA investigators would witness our natural flooding demonstration. Miguel Santos documented 40 years of agricultural damage, proving that the creek diversion was harming generational farming operations. Mrs. Chen offered her property as a staging area and she filed an emergency motion for agricultural water rights restoration, arguing that the dam covenant required me to maintain seasonal flooding for downstream agriculture. We weren't breaking the law, we were following it. Agricultural water rights often supersede residential development rights, especially with historical documentation proving prior use. I created detailed spillway operation plans, initiating a controlled release. At 6 a.m. and peaking at 10 a.m., safety was paramount. I posted warning signs and notified the volunteer fire department. This was a controlled demonstration of natural water flow. Amanda contacted environmental reporters, while Miguel arranged for community members to witness the restoration. Our intelligence network was robust, with Mrs. Chen monitoring HOA activities and my Army buddy providing drone support for documentation. As I modernized the spillway controls, Amanda waged financial warfare, contacting insurance companies and preparing whistleblower complaints about Rick's conflicts of interest. The Weather Service confirmed heavy rains in 72 hours, perfectly aligning with the federal inspection. However, I knew Maggie would escalate under pressure, so I prepared for her predictable responses. With Amanda drafting preemptive legal countermeasures, the preservation of evidence was crucial. I compiled extensive photographic documentation of the creek diversion, recorded video testimonies from affected farmers and neighbors, and gathered historical photographs of the original creek bed and flooding patterns. Amanda secured everything. In federal court filings for legal protection, our safety protocols included coordination with the volunteer fire department, communication with downstream residents, and notices posted in English and Spanish. I even created an evacuation plan to demonstrate responsible management. Amanda excelled in economic warfare, alerting state banking regulators about construction loan irregularities, contacting the Texas Attorney General regarding insurance fraud, and preparing a civil RICO lawsuit alleging racketeering. Coordinated regulatory pressure often leads to quicker settlements than individual lawsuits, as multiple agencies investigating simultaneously can overwhelm defendants. As I serviced the equipment and tested the spillway gates, the smell of WD-40 and machine oil filled the air. Everything worked perfectly. Pops had built this system to last. I stocked the farmhouse with supplies for a potential siege, knowing Maggie would try to stop me. Amanda filed protective court orders to prevent interference with lawful dam operations, and we established secure communications using military-grade encrypted radios. With heavy rains forecasted in 48 hours and federal investigators arriving in 36, the timing felt perfect for justice. Maggie's desperation grew when she hired private security to patrol my property. These weren't just rent-a-cops, they were tactical gear enthusiasts. My trail cameras caught them attempting to sabotage. The spillway at 2 a.m. was filmed trying to jam concrete into the hydraulic lines, while his accomplice acted as a lookout. Tony Riggs tipped off the sheriff's department, and Deputy Rodriguez was ready when they made their move. The arrest was satisfying, especially when Mr. Tactical Vest claimed they were protecting community infrastructure. Maggie's media blitz intensified as she appeared on the Austin Morning Show, portraying herself as a victim. Veterans need mental health support, not weapons, she claimed. while Rick provided expert testimony about dam failure risks, conveniently omitting that my dam had passed safety inspections for 45 years. Meanwhile, my surveillance training paid off as I documented every sabotage attempt and illegal entry. Tony revealed that federal investigators were wiretapping Rick's office as part of a corruption probe. The legal assault followed, with Rick fast-tracking an emergency restraining order hearing for 6 a.m. the next morning, hoping to catch us off guard. Judge Henry Walsh, a friend of Rick's, who had received campaign contributions from him, agreed to hear the motion. Amanda uncovered the corruption connection and quickly filed for Walsh's recusal, but we knew the fix was in. If they couldn't legally stop the spillway from opening, they would turn to a corrupt judge. Meanwhile, Maggie organized a neighborhood safety patrol, with 20 HOA residents showing up with folding chairs and signs proclaiming, "Protect our kids, planning to live." Stream the spillway opening as environmental terrorism. The optics were perfect for her narrative, suburban families with children, versus a dangerous veteran with a dam. Miguel Santos rallied 30 farmers and families to support what we called agricultural water restoration, while Mrs. Chan organized a counter-demonstration with historical photos of the creek in its natural state. Amanda brought in representatives from the Audubon Society and the Sierra Club. Two competing narratives were about to collide. The situation escalated when security creating a blockage that posed a real flooding danger. This was attempted murder disguised as vandalism. I worked through the night with a jackhammer, clearing the sabotage while documenting the evidence. Rick used his city council powers to declare my property an imminent public hazard, allowing the fire department to secure the dam. Fire Chief Martinez warned me that this was purely political. "You've got maybe 6 hours before they force me to intervene." Amanda's fraud reports triggered a state investigation, freezing all HOA development insurance policies and halting construction. Financial pressure was finally hitting Maggie and Rick's wallets. Tony moved the EPA inspection up by 24 hours due to credible sabotage reports. With federal agents arriving at 8 a.m., Maggie's final gambit was cruel. She contacted Veterans Mental Health Services, claiming I had made suicide threats. The social worker arrived at 5:30 a.m., just as I was preparing for the spillway operation. I had to convince her of my mental competence while preparing to flood a subdivision. At 7:02 a.m., with federal agents watching, I opened the spillway gates to 25% capacity. The sound was magnificent, the gentle whisper of water returning home. For the first time in 18 months, Willow Creek flowed in its original bed. Miguel knelt beside the creek, tears in his eyes. "This is the water that fed my grandfather's farm for 60 years, he whispered. Maggie screamed at the federal agents to arrest me, but EPA agent Sarah Kim calmly explained, "Ma'am, this gentleman has the legal right to operate his agricultural flood control system." As Miguel's extended family gathered with homemade tamales and cold beer, Mrs. Chen brought a traditional Chinese tea ceremony to bless the restored creek. In that moment, I realized this was never about revenge. It was about community the kind Pops had built, one neighbor at a time. The media narrative had shifted completely, with environmental groups praising the spillway operation as a model for ecosystem restoration. Judge Walsh's courtroom at 2 p.m. was packed, with media crews, farmers, HOA residents, and federal agents, filling every seat. The atmosphere was electric. This was a community reckoning. Maggie arrived with a team of high-powered attorneys, having traded her tennis outfit for a conservative black dress, while I showed up with Amanda in a simple button-down shirt and Pop's old cowboy hat. The gallery was divided, with HOA supporters on one side and community members on the other. Maggie's attorney opened with dramatic flair, claiming $2.7 million in flood damage from my spillway operation and presenting a psychiatrist, who diagnosed me based on newspaper clippings. "Your Honor," the attorney declared, gesturing toward me, "this disturbed veteran is using military engineering knowledge to terrorize innocent families." Amanda stood to present our response, introducing the 1978 Agricultural Flood Management Covenant that mandated seasonal flooding. EPA agent Kim testified that my operation restored natural water flow without causing damage, supported by historical photographs. Tony Riggs, an EPA enforcement officer, revealed that the HOA had violated federal environmental laws and committed insurance fraud. Judge Walsh squirmed as the details unfolded, weighing his political loyalty to Rick. Against potential federal prosecution, the turning point came when Amanda called Rick as a witness. Under oath, he admitted to fast-tracking zoning changes while I was deployed and revealed his financial stake in the construction company. When Amanda played a recorded phone conversation about destroying property values, Rick exploded, claiming it was a federal setup. The emotional power came from community testimony. Miguel Santos spoke of generations of farming destroyed by the creek diversion, while Mrs. Chen shared photos of her once lush garden, now withered. Fire Chief Martinez testified that the spillway operation was executed with zero safety violations. Downstream, property owners confirmed their agricultural water access had been fully restored, and the courtroom buzzed with tension as Maggie took the stand for what became her final performance. "He came back from war, damaged, Your Honor," she said, pointing at me with trembling fingers. She accused me of threatening her safety and labeled the spillway operation as environmental terrorism aimed at destroying property values and traumatizing residents. When Amanda called me to testify, the courtroom fell silent. I presented POP's journals documenting 40 years of community water sharing, explained my Army Corps engineering calculations, and spoke directly to Judge Walsh, asserting, "Your Honor, I didn't flood anybody. I restored a creek that was stolen from my family in this community for 45 years. The pivotal moment came when Amanda introduced final evidence. Documentation of Maggie's Houston HOA paying $2.3 million in EPA fines for a similar creek diversion scheme. The federal prosecutor announced a criminal investigation into interstate water fraud conspiracy, causing the courtroom to erupt as the extent of the corruption became evident. Judge Walsh had no choice but to deny all restraining order requests, ruling that my spillway operation was legal and beneficial, and ordered the HOA to cease all interference with federal environmental investigations. His warning to Rick was clear: this court would not obstruct lawful federal environmental enforcement. As federal agents escorted Rick from the courthouse while banking investigators served additional warrants, Maggie found herself surrounded by reporters, refusing to comment as she sped away in her BMW, likely already calling moving companies. I emerged to cheers from farmers, environmentalists, and curious townspeople who witnessed justice flowing as naturally as water finding its way home. Amanda announced the federal RICO investigation at an impromptu press conference while Miguel thanked me on behalf of every affected family. My statement was simple: this was never about revenge. It was about doing right by the land and the people who depend on it. 6 months later, justice flowed as naturally as the restored creek. Rick Thornwell pleaded guilty to federal conspiracy charges and received 3 years in federal prison, while Maggie faced $8.7 million in civil penalties and filed for bankruptcy, faster than water rushing through an open spillway. The construction company paid $12 million in EPA fines and was banned from all federal contract work, leading to the complete dissolution of the HOA, which was replaced by a new community association focused on environmental stewardship. My property value was restored to $1.2 million after the federal environmental designation made it more valuable than any suburban development could. The $340,000 settlement from the insurance fraud investigation went to a good cause. I bought Miguel's family farm at tax auction and returned it to him. Environmental restoration often increases property values more than development ever could. The community transformation was the real victory, with the restored creek attracting ecotourism, kayaking, birdwatching, and fishing where were supposed to stand. Mrs. Chin's garden became a demonstration site for sustainable agriculture, and 3 downstream farms reported their best crop yields in a decade. The local diner became the unofficial headquarters for the Willow Creek Restoration Association, where farmers and environmentalists planned the next fight against corporate water theft. The environmental success exceeded every expectation, with protected Guadalupe populations recovering to pre-diversion levels within 4 months, and the Audubon Society documenting 12 bird species returning to restored wetland habitat. Texas Parks and Wildlife designated the creek as a critical wildlife corridor, ensuring permanent protection. My spillway operation became a case study in the Army Corps of Engineers training manual. Sometimes, the best revenge is just doing your job. correctly. Personally, I found peace I didn't know I was missing. Renovating Pop's farmhouse using sustainable construction techniques, and Sarah moved back from California to help manage our growing agritourism business. Amanda and I developed a strong bond through our fight against environmental crime. The ripple effect spread across Texas like water, finding new channels. With environmental groups using the Willow Creek model to challenge illegal diversions statewide and federal agencies. Citing our case in new water rights enforcement guidelines, I've become an unofficial consultant for communities fighting HOA overreach, receiving constant calls for assistance. We established the Paps Morrison Environmental Scholarship for rural students studying water management, with Miguel's daughter, Maria, as the first recipient. Now studying environmental engineering at UT Austin to protect watersheds across Texas. From people like Maggie, the annual Creek Days Festival celebrates restoration and community resilience, with local food, environmental education, and veteran support services, raising money for a water rights legal defense fund that has already helped 6 other communities fight back against corporate theft. My favorite part is seeing kids swimming in the creek where homes were supposed to be built, splashing in water that flows free because a community stood together. Every Sunday, I visit Pop's grave and bring creek water in a mason jar, just like he used to do when checking the flow after heavy rains. "Thanks, Pops," I tell him. The creek's singing again just like you said it would. The Legacy Project ensures this victory lasts forever. With the Willow Creek Conservation Trust now owning development rights to the entire watershed, creating a permanent buffer zone that prevents future commercial development, no one will ever steal this water again. In a beautiful twist, Maggie's Houston HOA faced federal RICO prosecution based on our case, with 147 families across 3 states filing similar water rights restoration lawsuits. What started as one veteran's fight became a nationwide movement for environmental justice. From my porch each evening, watching that creek flow exactly where it belongs, I'm reminded that some fights are worth everything you've got. Sometimes you have to flood the valley to save the creek, but you don't do it alone. You do it with your community, your neighbors, and people who believe clean water belongs to everyone, not just those with the best lawyers and the most corrupt city council connections. If you're fighting HOA overreach, environmental destruction, or bureaucratic bullying, don't give up. Document everything, find allies, and remember, the law is on your side when you're protecting the land for future generations. Drop a comment and share your HOA nightmare story. I read every single one and reply when I can because these fights are easier when we support each other. Hit subscribe for more stories about communities fighting back against corruption and winning. And remember, your voice matters, your vote matters, and your creek matters too. Next week, I'll tell you about the city that tried to steal my neighbor's solar farm, leading her to cut power to City Hall during the mayor's wedding story about a different kind of power and how one engineer turned the lights out on municipal corruption. Water finds a way. Justice finds a way. And communities that fight together win together. Willow Creek flows free, y'all, and it always will.